Wolf of Fantasy Sports back with the DFS Wolfpack for NFL Week 2 first look. This is my first impressions, looking at the prices at each player at each position, starting with the quarterback all the way down to the defense on Draftkings player pricing. Hope everyone had a good Week 1. I did my best to give out as much information as I could to get y'all started on the right foot. I think one of the lineups I put up on YouTube put up a 201. So hopefully that helps somebody. It was just a game theory lineup I put together real quick. I didn't really mean to put it out there like that, but put up 201. If anybody ended up entering that in the contest, they definitely doubled up, tripled up. Depending on where you put it, you made money. Looking at some of the contests I want to go over. You got the NFL UFC 229 VIP experience. This is Habib Nurmagomedov versus Conor McGregor for the belt, floor seats, 418. I might have to enter this one time just to see what happens. Conor McGregor, one of my favorite UFC fighters. He's crazy. We all love it when he starts talking, getting reckless. Look at this contest. It's a fairly good one. There's like 418 people. You got a shot to win this. Especially Week 2. Week 2 is nothing like Week 1. Week 1 was a free-for-all. Lot of prices on players. It was just real low. Like, I couldn't believe it. It was unreal. So I put up a 222. That was my high this week. And if you look over here, this was my best lineup of the week. So is my Andy Dalton, Kamara, Connor, Sanders, Keenan Allen, Keelan Cole, Gronk, Burkhead, and the Ravens defense. I put up a 222. James Conner was the best value, and my highest scoring player was Kamara, Super Chalk. So that was my best lineup. My locks of the week that I posted up on my Instagram were Kamara, Sanders, Cole, and the Ravens defense. That was cash game locks, and it worked out in GPP as well. So hopefully that helped you out to round out your lineups or the base of your lineups, however you did it. So shout out to one of my subscribers. The blog helped them out. So if you haven't seen my blog, it's on dfswolfpack.com. Check out my blog. That's where I post my player pool. You can enter that in the optimizers. You can check out dfscheatsheet.com if you want to use their optimizer. Throw my player pool in there and see what it gets you for results. Shout out to him, though, for reaching out. Yo, something I seen that was crazy was Fantasy Cruncher. Drew Dinkmeyer won 121,000 and some change. Fantasy Cruncher reaches out to him and says, hey, seeing the Fantasy Cruncher users kill it always makes me happy. Congrats, Dink. So everyone was wondering what the hell is Fantasy Cruncher talking about. They're also an optimizer website, and you can contract with them to have their optimizer on your website. Someone said, so wait, Daily Roto peddles its own opto but uses yours instead when money is on the line? And this Fantasy Cruncher said correct. And then Drew reached back to him and said, whatever. I just thought this was hilarious. This was something that went on today. It was just, it created a few laughs within the industry and whatnot. So Fantasy Cruncher's out here looking crazy. Whatever. Their service is actually decent, though. I've used it a few times. It's not bad. So forget all that. Looking at contests this week that I really like. You got a $12 single entry, 200K fair catch. Make sure you get in there before it fills. Out of 19,000 entries. And then you got the single entry, $3, 100K pylon. There's a bunch of other single entries. Lock in all the single entries. That's your best advantage. That's a fair playing field. There's no 150 lineups you got to compete against. It's everybody's best lineup. So you got the Fantasy Football World Championship qualifier. If you're looking to go to the live final, that's how you get into it. They got different entry fees and different entrance totals. So the $5 out of 16,700. I'll be in that. I'm trying to get to the live final. I'm trying to compete against the best, and that's what I'm doing. Let's get to this player pool. First look. Last week's video was an hour long. This is going to be about 10 minutes. I'm just going to briefly go over each quarterback that I like this week, looking at the price. So Drew Brees, Superdome, Coors Field, in the NFL, a lot of points can be put up in the Superdome. It's indoors. 7,200. Brees is definitely in play. The Saints are 0-1. They're going to be looking for a win. Drew Brees will get it, especially if Cleveland can push the pace. And if Cleveland has a lead and forces New Orleans to do whatever they got to do to score, then definitely Brees is definitely in play at home. They need this win. Looking at Roethlisberger at home, got to check the Q tag on him. Minor elbow injury. At home, he plays a lot better than he does on the road. He could put up a lot of points at home in a cake matchup versus KC. Their secondary, they lost Marcus Peters. No Eric Berry. Big Ben could put up a big game here. Look at Schuster, Brown, Connor. Definitely could be a stack that could win a GPP. We've seen Pittsburgh stacks take down millionaire makers in the past. Could definitely be this week. Aaron Rodgers at home versus Minnesota. Tough matchup. He got a little banged up in that last game. First half was rough on him. Second half he looked great. Wasn't really moving out of the pocket too much. I got to follow up on Rodgers. I'm not going to play him, though. The limited exposure, if any. Phillip Rivers, I like this play a lot. Buffalo, I'm from Buffalo. They're not good this year. They got the worst defense. And I project them to lose a lot of games, maybe win one or two. So Phillip Rivers is in play. Hopefully they don't put up a big enough score by halftime where they bench the starters. That's something we got to keep in mind. Buffalo's so bad. Baltimore had to bench their starters. So Flacco put up a good game. Wacko Flacco. Looking at Rivers, he could definitely do the same. Cam Newton on the road versus Atlanta. I don't love this matchup all that much. I might play McCaffrey in a few lineups this week. And that's about it. But Newton's okay here at 6,600. Tom Brady 6,500 versus Jacksonville. I'm going to pass on him this week. Looking at Kirk Cousins versus Green Bay on the road. He's viable. Maybe I'll sprinkle him in a GPP or two. Maybe a qualifier. Stack him up. Maybe go with Rudolph and Diggs or Rudolph and Thielen just to be different in a GPP. Try to take down like a $1 qualifier with that lineup. But Kirk Cousins is all right. Deshaun Watson. Now this is a bounce back game for Deshaun Watson versus Tennessee, who could be without Marcus Mariota. You're going to have to look into that and keep up on it throughout the week. Great spot for Watson to bounce back on the road. I like the price on him. Jared Goff at home versus Arizona. He's okay. Somebody I might have a little bit of exposure to. Andrew Luck on the road versus Washington. I'm going to stay away from him just because I like so many different quarterbacks in this price range. Patrick Mahomes. Kid looked elite last week. Like, looked really good. Mahomes, for a debut of the season, Mahomes completed, on the road, completed 15 to 27 pass attempts, 256, 4 touchdowns. Patrick Mahomes. This was a QB2 I picked up in a lot of my leagues, and I actually started him in a few of them this week, and I went 5 for 7. So I won 5 out of 7 leagues this week. Mahomes was a big part of that in 2 of them. Put up a monster game. Helped me edge out my opponent. If he happens to be on your waiver wire for whatever reason, just pick him up. Have him as your QB2. Say you got Rodgers, whatever. Just pick him up. So, Mahomes put up 28.3 on the road versus the Chargers. No Bosa. They're missing one of their best cornerbacks due to a season-ending injury. Versus Pittsburgh, this could be a nice shootout game. So I definitely like Mahomes here. One of my favorite quarterbacks on the week. I like what I saw. And he's got a lot of weapons that he didn't even get to use yet. He's got Travis Kelce, Hunt. Sammy Watkins is viable, solid, a little bit above average receiver when healthy. So I expected them to get the click in. And obviously, Ty Freak. He's not a Ty Fluke. It's Ty Freak. I think he confirmed that week 1 with the punt return, the 2 touchdowns, the crazy one-handed grab, spin move. Patrick Mahomes is set up to succeed where Andrew Luck is set up for failure in a sense, what he's working with. So look at Patrick Mahomes. I really like him a lot this week. Matthew Stafford looked horrible, and it's a short week for him. Playing on Monday. I don't like this. Versus San Francisco, he could bounce back, but in this price range, I'm definitely rolling with Mahomes. Rolling with my homies. So Alex Smith versus Indianapolis. He could be an under the radar pick. I could see him low ownership. You could pair him up with the tight end Reed and try to take a guess on which receiver is going to get the touchdown. He could probably throw 2 or 3 here. And the running backs, he's got Thompson that's in play too. So that's a good move. Alex Smith is under the radar play that could definitely put up a 20 plus. I could see it. Jimmy Garoppolo bounce back game versus Detroit. I could see that 6,000. We got to see if his receiver's healthy, and I'm gonna look into that situation a little bit more before I make a decision on Garoppolo if I'm gonna have exposure to him. Tyrod Taylor, games in the Superdome, should do good. He can get it on a feet. I believe he ran for 70 yards. What was it? 77, yeah, 77 yards, team high. So he rushed for 77 and a score on 8 carries. So he has the rushing upside. He has a touchdown rushing upside. 15 for 39, not good. 197 yards with a touchdown. He got the touchdown to Gordon. Gordon, I saw an alert that said Gordon is the number 2 receiver this week. So he is going to start. So that's definitely a plus for Tyrod Taylor. Put up 24.6, was definitely cash game viable. A lot of sharps jumped off Tyrod Taylor looking at the weather. So the weather was bad. They jumped off Taylor, moved up to Dalton, and Taylor killed it. He's outscored Dalton. Case Keenum, definitely in play versus Oakland. I've never been high on Oakland the last 2 years. Everyone was thinking they were the next best thing. And I was just sitting back fading them in season-long drafts. So I'm not high on Oakland. I don't think they're a good team this year. And you had Mari Cooper with 1 target? That's crazy. Looking at Case Keenum, I think he's definitely in play. Pair him up with Thomas or pair him up with his looks to be favorite receiver, Emmanuel Sanders, who crushed it. So good matchup for him. 5,800, don't mind it. Matt Ryan, I'm off him right now. He just doesn't look right. And, I never really believed the hype with Matt Ryan with the MVP season and all that. And in the Super Bowl, he kind of choked. Whatever. I think he needs a few more weeks before he can get right. They've always played Carolina pretty good. This is a nice little rival game. And Julio Jones goes off versus Carolina if you look at the history. So Nick Foles in play here versus Tampa Bay. I don't love him though, but he's definitely in play. I could see this game. If you saw what Tampa did last week to New Orleans, that was kind of a shocker. Fitzmagic showed up. I thought it was Fitztragic. Now with Fitzpatrick, he's definitely going to regress. I'm not playing him this week. I hope people do. 5,500. I hope people play this guy because he'll have 1 or 2 good games a season, and you don't know when they're coming. No one expected it versus New Orleans. He did have exposure though. People played him on DraftKings. People play everybody on DraftKings looking for an edge. So maybe that was a hedge stack. And Fitzpatrick won the Millionaire Maker. So anything could happen in DFS. So I'm not going to have any exposure to him. Don't believe in him. I got a nice little meme I'm about to post that I created as soon as he bombs in this matchup here. So looking at Blake Bortles, don't like him versus New England. Looking at Tannehill, I'm off that versus the Jets. The Jets look pretty damn good. Tannehill, I'm not a believer in him. Sam Darnold versus Miami. Don't mind him at 5,100. Believe he put up 20 plus or 14.8. So, yeah, pretty solid game. He threw that pick 6 in the opening drive. And you know what? So did Brett Favre. So, take that for what it is. He looked great. I believe he had 140 passer rating after that pick 6. So, he's definitely viable GPP. Looking at Sam Bradford, I don't want no part of that. He's really cheap at 4,800. He put up 4.8 versus Washington. This is a way tougher matchup versus the Rams, who, Marcus Peters, who the defense is stout. They're going to be rushing him. He's going to make mistakes. Rams defense is definitely viable this week. Gabbert, if he's the starter, I don't really want any part of that. He's had some success. 11 to 22 for 117 and an interception. I don't want no part of that. Maybe you could look at Houston defense if Gabbert's the starter. No thanks. Josh Allen could be the starter versus the Chargers, which is crazy. 4,600. That'd be a deep GPP tournament flyer if he's the starter. I don't want no part of Nate Peterman, but I will stack against him with the defense and the other team, the Chargers. I'll load up on them offensively, defensively. So that's it for quarterback. Looking at running back real quick, Kamara obviously in play. They're going to have to lean on him to get a win. They're 0-1. You saw what he did last week. He has the most upside out of almost all these running backs. He's got the most upside and probably the best floor too. Gurley, he's right up there versus Arizona. He's a great play. 9,200. You're going to have to make a decision this week. This week is not last week where it was just so easy and the chalk hit and everything made sense. This week, you have to make some critical decisions that are going to change the outlook on what you're going to profit. You can make the wrong decision here and it could cost you your cash game, or it could cost you cash and high in GPPs. David Johnson, I'm off him. I don't want no part of David Johnson right now. That team, I'm not a believer in, the Arizona Cardinals, and if you picked him up in season long, you might be all right, but I'm not taking him with these other options above him and underneath him. Melvin Gordon is a lock for me. This player, he will be in about 50% of my lineups. Melvin Gordon, without a doubt. 7,400. The price is right. Only 400 more than McCaffrey, who everyone's going to play. Atlanta just lost one of the key defenders, I believe linebacker. I'm not sure. I was looking up on it. And McCaffrey should go off. Atlanta has trouble with pass catching running backs. So that's something you want to look at. Look at the stats. He carried 10 times for 50 and caught 6 of 9. Okay, so 9 targets, 10 rushing attempts. That's what you want to see. Put up 14.5. He did not get in the box. He has touchdown potential here. He's on the road, though. Cam started off good, looked to struggle a little bit. So I prefer Melvin Gordon over McCaffrey. And I will have some exposure to McCaffrey, probably limited. And I will most likely take Melvin Gordon over McCaffrey. Almost 100%. Looking at James Conner, he's in play here. His price skyrocketed up to 6,700, but for good reason, because he carried the ball 31 times in a bad weather game, 135 yards, 2 touchdowns. He caught 5 of 6 targets, so he's carrying the ball 31 times. Was it the bad weather? Is he going to get that much volume? I highly doubt it. I think Antonio Brown goes off this week, or Juju, or maybe even both of them, or maybe even all 3. Because the stack looks pretty good if Roethlisberger's healthy. 6 targets, though. That's encouraging. 31 attempts. Damn. Put up a monster. I had him as a lock on FanDuel, and I had him in probably like 75-80% of my lineups on Draftkings, just due to the weather and the touches that I thought he was projected to get. FanDuel, he was just bare min price. It was just a no-brainer. Just lock him in. Get Kamara. And that combination on FanDuel, I did very well. If I had Sanders over Hogan on FanDuel, I would have put up over 210, 220 easy. I was putting up 180, 190 with Hogan instead of Sanders. That's the one mistake I made this week on FanDuel. DraftKings, I had 100% Sanders, though. Too cheap. Looking at Cook, I'm off Cook. It looks like Murray's cutting into his workload here. Yeah, I'm not on Delvin Cook, not in this matchup. Jay Ajayi, he is viable at 6,300, maybe in a GPP to get different. If he gets the touchdowns, he could pay off his salary here. Kareem Hunt, 6,200. Didn't really do all that much last week. Didn't really have to because Ty Freak did everything. 4.9. No one's going to really own this guy. He's going to be low owned. I think he is viable in GPP. Chris Thompson. I picked up this guy in the late round of few of my drafts, and nobody was taking him, like, late. So I picked him up in like 3 out of my 7 drafts. I was able to get him in my season-long leagues. And I'm high on him. I actually started him last week. Due to Freeman, I didn't really trust it. I wanted to see it first. And then he kind of paid off. So I think he's viable in GPP. Definitely. Indianapolis. I like that. Kenyon Drake, I'm off of him. Don't want no part of that. Gore's cutting into that a little bit. I'm off of McCoy, even though his best games are at home. If you look at McCoy, most of his touchdowns come in home games. So I'm from Buffalo. I know a lot about the Bills. That's something you want to look into. I don't really like the Bills at all in this matchup. 5,700. You know what? If his price really drops, I mean, this is crazy for LaShawn McCoy. Even in a not so good matchup, but 5,700 is just out of control for a starting running back of his caliber. Maybe I throw him in a $1, $3 just to have some fun with it. As a home team favorite for me, Bills fan. So that's about it. Yeldon, he could get the start here if Fournette's not ready to go. Don't really love him versus New England. He's a pass catcher, though. He could do some damage at 56, but I prefer other players. Adrian Peterson had a monster game. 26 carries, 96 yards, touchdown. Caught 2 or 3 targets for 70 yards. That's some good production. He's got a lot to prove. People are counting him out, saying he's over the hill. He's too old. He's a workout monster. He looks to be in great shape. So 23.6 he put up. Versus Indianapolis, he's definitely in play. Lamar Miller, like him as a player. I think he's better with Watson healthy. I'm just not going to play him at 5,400. Coleman, I'm off him. Derrick Henry had a 60-yard plus touchdown called back. So, no one really wants to play this guy. Without Mariota, I don't want to play him either. If the offense isn't healthy, they lost Delaney Walker. So this just looks to be a team that's in shambles. They shouldn't have the lead where he's going to be run heavy or anything like that. You got Dion Lewis. I don't like it. I'm not touching Henry. I'm trying to get rid of him on one of my season-long leagues. So if anybody wants him that's in there, you can have him. Send me the trade. See what you got. Jamal Williams, I'm off him. Bilal Powell, he's in play here versus Miami. Dion Lewis, he could be in play. What do they got? Garrett. Yeah, Dion Lewis, it's just nothing telling me I got to play this guy. It's a good price. They should be trailing. He's a pass catching back. I just don't know if I like this team at all. Tennessee. This game could get out of hand. Houston could just manhandle them. It could look real ugly. I don't think I want Lewis. Carlos Hyde, he's all right. Superdome game. A lot of points could be put up in the Superdome. Cleveland, defense got better. Offense got better. They could put up a fight here, but I see New Orleans winning the game. Carlos Hyde's viable because of the price, but I'm not going to have any shares of him. Darren Sproles, that's a 3-headed monster. Crowell, pretty cheap price, 4,600. Don't mind him here. He showed up versus Detroit, but Detroit was a mess. Matt Patricia, get your shit together. You played that team twice a year for quite a long time under Belichick, and defensive coordinator turned coach. That wasn't good. 10 times for 102 yards. Cheap price. I don't think he'll get the touchdowns like he did before, though. It could be a Powell game. You gotta look into that. That'll be a player I keep my eye on, see if I want to play him in a few matchups. A few lineups that I put together. He might end up in a few GPPs. Looking at James White. This is one of my favorite plays at this price. You got Crowell at 4,600 in this price range. He's viable. And you got James White. If you look, last week, James White. Now, I was touting him last week. I really liked him, especially over Burkhead with the Q tag. And then Burkhead was a full go. He's the every down back. He got 18 carries. He just didn't find the box. He was getting like 3-4 yards per carry. It wasn't good. But White, with the wide receiver situation, White got 9 targets. Some receivers don't even see 4 to 5 targets. If you look at Amari Cooper, what do you get? Like 1 target? So James White at 4,500, if he's going to see over 5 targets, that's what you want. And then he also had 5 attempts, 18 yards. He got a touchdown in the air. Tom Brady's going to need him in this matchup here versus Jacksonville. I believe he had a rushing touchdown last time out versus Jacksonville, last time they faced each other last year. So looking at that, James White is probably my favorite offensive weapon to target here versus Jacksonville. I think they're going to need him to pick up first downs. I think they're going to need him to score a touchdown here. And James White, he's trusted with Brady. I just think this is the best play versus Jacksonville. This is probably the only player I'll roster on New England, most definitely. And then Jeremy Hill, I believe he tore his ACL, so he's out of the picture. They just signed somebody, can't remember his name, a running back, and they also signed Corey Coleman. Yeah, so they picked him up for a wide receiver position. I don't think he'll be ready for week 1. So James White, I think Tom Brady will lean on him. He'll probably get you 10 to 15 DraftKings points. If he's seeing 9 targets, that's what you want right there at 4,500. You also have Rex Burkhead. This could be a bounce back. If they get a couple flags in the goal, Rex Burkhead will punch him in. 4,400. He's viable as well. He saw 18 carries, 64 yards, and he had a 5-yard catch. So how many targets? He had 3 targets. So Rex Burkhead is viable. I prefer White. I'll have a lineup with both because you always need a lineup with both. The lineup that I built, the game theory lineup that I put together on my video, Chalk and Sleepers, it put up a 201. Now, if you switched out Burkhead for White, you save $200, and you could go from Chris Hogan, who was 6,100, to Diggs, who was 6,300, and that would have given you 20 more points. So that easily you could have switched out 2 players in that lineup and went from 201 to about 220 DraftKings points. So that's what I like to do with my lineup. So if I have a nice build, I'll look at it, I'll analyze it, I'll see where can I upgrade some players. And if I could upgrade one running back for another running back, especially on the same team, because you don't know which ones are going to go off, you play the odds. So you play the other running back, and then you see where you can upgrade the other positions. I was able to upgrade from Hogan to Diggs, and it worked out. So that's pretty much it for running back in that price range. You got Royce Freeman. Royce Freeman, he had an opportunity to have a big game last week. Really didn't do much here. 15 times, 71 yards, did not catch a pass, right? So this could be a hell of a bounce back, under the radar play. Royce Freeman, 4,300. He's definitely going to be in a few of my GPP lineups. I like Denver in this matchup at home. Kerryon Johnson. He rushed 5 times. This was just a bad game flow for him. This game got out of hand quick. Versus the Jets, he wasn't needed. Put up 6.7. Saw 3 targets. I don't know if I like that play looking at that offense right now. So looking at wide receiver position, Antonio Brown could be the highest scoring player this week for NFL Week 2. That's why you're going to have to make some decisions this week who you want to play. Looking at Michael Thomas, I think Antonio Brown's like a great play. If you got enough money to put him in your lineup, get him in there. Michael Thomas, he's good at home. You saw what he did last week, put up a monster number. They're 0-1. They need to win. He's going to see double-digit targets. He got 17 targets. That's out of control. So he's definitely in play too. The problem is you don't have that cheap chalk that's going to go off unless you play both Patriots running backs and try to squeeze these guys in and then take a cheap quarterback. How are you going to get in Kamara, Thomas, Brown? It's not possible. So you're going to have to make some key decisions this week on who you're going to pay up for. Julio Jones, his history is great versus Carolina. I don't see that changing. He's going to see a lot of targets. Hopefully, I think Matt Ryan's like 1 for 10 with Julio in the red zone getting touchdown. That's crazy. He's like 1 for 20 at his last red zone attempts. So that's really bad for Julio's touchdown upside. But he does get the targets and he does put up the points. Hopkins is in play here versus Tennessee. Keenan Allen's definitely in play versus Buffalo. I just see them getting a huge lead. And at halftime, maybe third quarter, they probably will just be running the ball, running out the clock with a big lead. Looking at Tyreek Hill, this guy is Ty Freak. He's not Ty Fluke for all the non-believers. 7,600. He's a great play. If you see what he did last week, he ran back a punt. The guy's just too quick. And versus Pittsburgh, I think this is a shootout game. 8 targets, 7 receptions, caught 7 out of 8 for 169 and 2 touchdowns. He's just a monster. And the thing you got to worry about with Ty Freak is he can do this on any given slate. He can run back a punt, and he can put up a monster score. So fade at your own risk. He'll definitely be a player I have some exposure to. Mike Evans, I'm off him this week versus Philly. It's going to be a tough defense. It will not be... New Orleans really had a shitty defense like 2-3 years ago. They got rid of the defensive coordinator, Rob Ryan, and then it kind of turned new corner, and they were actually pretty good last year, which surprised me. Out of nowhere, they just became good on defense. And then I think they came into the week 1 slump where maybe they just didn't train, training camp. Maybe they're just taking it easy, and it was a huge wake-up call because they got blitzed by Tampa Bay week 1, and then they lost in a shootout. So I don't think they do anything versus Philly. I think they come back down to earth. Looking at Thielen and Diggs, they're viable versus Green Bay. At this price, though, I'm not going to take either of them just because I don't think there's that much of a ceiling with them, too. Looking at Devontae Adams, though, different story. He's got Rodgers throwing him the football. He could put up 2-3 touchdowns in this matchup. This should be a close, hard-fought game. I think Adams is in play, but only in GPP for me because of the price. Looking at Hilton, I'm off him. Amari Cooper, let's see. Dude had 3 targets, caught 1 ball, put up 2.8. I'm off him. Golden Tate, I'm off of him as well. I think he's okay, though. I think he's viable, but he saw 15 targets. That's a lot. So out of all the wide receivers for Detroit, he'd probably be the one I would take, him and Galladay, if any. And if you want to go with a low-owned stack, Detroit is a low-owned stack for this week. Look at that Juju Schuster. This is a great price on him. He could put up 2 touchdowns. Had a monster catch. He saw 8 targets, 119. Did he get in the box? No touchdown. Okay. So he put up 19.9 with no touchdown. So this is a shootout game. This is how I have it projected. I like Juju. Looking at Landry. He got a lot of targets. Tyrod feels comfortable with Landry. 15 targets. He's going to get over 10 targets or around that per game. He's definitely in play at 6,300. Good matchup inside the Superdome. A lot of points should be put up here. Marvin Jones, I'm off him. I prefer Tate if I go that route. Looking at Sanders, I think he's in play at home. You got Case Keenum. Targets the slot over 50% of the time there. So he's definitely in play. If you want a nice low pivot, it's definitely going to be Demaryius Thomas, who also saw 10 targets. So they're both in play here versus Oakland because I do not like Oakland. I think Keenum could pick them apart there. Might throw a pick, but he'll definitely have an opportunity to succeed in this matchup. So look at Thomas. Look at Sanders. Sanders would be high owned. Looking at Nelson Aguilar. Dude saw a ton of targets, but only had 31 yards, 33 yards, 10 targets, 8 receptions. So he put up 11 points. What was it? 13.5 off of 8 receptions. That's crazy. But as he's seeing 10 targets, that's good. If he gets in the box, he pays it off. 6,100. He's a viable play. Cooks, I don't mind him all that much, but nothing I'm looking to put on my lineups this week. Fitz is okay. Robert Woods, I'm completely off of. If you want a GPP tournament play, it's definitely Josh Gordon in this matchup. 5,800. He was declared the number 2 starter, wide receiver 2 there in Cleveland, so he's definitely in play. His upside, man. That catch that he had for that touchdown, that was crucial. That was big time. 3 targets, 1 reception, touchdown. Just if you look at the highlight of that, that's why Josh Gordon is still regarded as one of the top tier wide receivers in the league when healthy, when out there. Looking at Kenny Stills, had a monster game last time out. I think he's definitely viable here versus the Jets. Don't love him, though. Thomas, I like him. 5,600, good play. Cooper Kupp, red zone target. Don't mind him, don't love him. Robbie Anderson had a hell of a catch from Darnold for that touchdown. That was big time versus Detroit. He's in play at 5,400. Chris Hogan, bounce back spot. He looks to be in a bad matchup here versus Jacksonville. I don't even care about the bias and oh, he had a bad week last week, take him this week. No one will be on him, but whatever. I don't want that. I want the pass catcher. I want James White or maybe a sprinkle of Burkhead, but definitely James White is the only piece of that New England. Corey Davis, he's okay. Mariota, if he's banged up, I don't want no part of it. Garcon, I don't mind him here at 5,000. Good price, had 6 targets, didn't really do shit with it. Looking at Jordy Nelson, I'm off of him completely. Like if Amari Cooper only got 3 targets, what am I doing with Jordy Nelson? 4 targets, caught 3, 23 yards. That's not getting it done. I just don't like Oakland. Never been big on Oakland, Derek Carr, or any of that. Looking at Crowder, he's okay. 4 targets, caught 3. He's okay in this matchup versus Indianapolis. That should set up real well for him. That's GPP if you want to pair him up with Alex Smith. Looking at Keelan Cole. I don't love him in this matchup. He's okay. Nothing I want to put on my lineups, though. In this price range, I would probably prefer Goodwin if he was fully healthy. Definitely at 4,800. But looks to be a little dicey there. Galladay's in play. Nunwa looks good, but the matchup, that's a decent matchup at 4,700. He'll be all right. Looking at Funchess with Greg Olsen out, he should be more viable. He should see some more targets. I believe he had, 5 targets. He should see a few more in this matchup here. Looking at Godwin, I'm off of him. Sammy Watkins. Now, he didn't really do anything last game out. He had 5 targets, caught 3 for 21 yards. This could be a breakout game for Sammy Watkins. 4,600 is a really cheap price. And in a game where I see the score being a high total, nice little shootout, Sammy Watkins could definitely be in play. I will have a Pat Mahomes and Watkins combination somewhere out there in $1, $3. I'm throwing it in a tournament for sure. Amendola, I'm off of him. I'm off of Benjamin. Randall Cobb's in play at 4,600 here. Definitely in play. Philip Dorsett, 4,500. Why am I going to pay up for Philip Dorsett at 4,500 when I believe he was 37? So his price jumped up. He saw 7 targets, right? 7 targets. He caught all 7 for a touchdown. Now, that's good and all that, but I'd much rather have James White at the same price, who saw 9 targets and has been to Super Bowls with Tom Brady, okay? And won Super Bowls, or won a Super Bowl with Tom Brady. So, definitely rather have White over Philip Dorsett. I'm not paying $4,500 for Dorsett. The 7 targets, 7 for 7 is encouraging and all that. I'm not a believer, not in this matchup. Looking at Tyrell, the Gazelle Williams, 4,400. He's definitely in play versus Buffalo. Ryan Grant, he saw what? He saw 9 targets as the wide receiver 2 for Andrew Luck. This guy could be definitely viable. If he's on your waiver wire, you need a receiver, I would pick him up. Ryan Grant is definitely a good pickup. Looking at anybody down here, Paul Richardson, I really like him all that much. He had 6 targets, though he caught 4 for 22. Mike Wallace could catch a bomb for a touchdown, maybe. He didn't really see many targets. It was just Ertz and Aguilar. Yeah, 3 targets. Didn't catch anything. I'm off of him. I don't really like anybody down here. You got Bruce Ellington. If Fuller is out, he's definitely in place. Saw 8 targets. Had a touchdown. I believe he was on the GPP winning lineup on FanDuel. Bruce Ellington. Now, this is somebody who's viable if Will Fuller is out. Most definitely. So keep an eye on Bruce Ellington. I might have a sprinkle of this guy if I need somebody. James Washington, he's a tournament flyer. He didn't see any targets in that matchup in a bad weather game versus Cleveland. But Bruce Ellington's the guy in this price range. Oh, and Geronimo Ellison. Definitely viable. That touchdown catch was crucial to their win. He had 8 targets, touchdown, and he's got the best quarterback in the game throwing him the football. So in this price range, I really like Allison and Bruce Ellington. Albert Wilson's okay here, and Mike Williams. In a blowout game, they could definitely get him going here at 3,700. He's also viable. Saw 6 targets, 81 yards. I like that. Cortland Sutton, he didn't really do all that much. He saw 5 targets, had 45 yards. He was really cheap. He's still cheap. And that's about it. That's it. I'll go down to Sutton. I like Mike Williams. They could get him going. Geronimo Allison for sure. And Bruce Ellington. So Bruce Ellington and Geronimo Allison and 3,000 range. Moving over to tight end. You got to like Gronk in this matchup, though. I won't pay up for him. And they took him off the $6,900 price tag, which, you know, that's where he belongs. So I don't know why they did that. But I'm off of Gronk. Looking at Ertz, he's definitely in play versus Tampa. You're paying up for it. Kelsey didn't do much last week, but you know this guy has a high ceiling when he gets going. He was 1 for 6. Mahomes is going to connect with him eventually. Maybe not this week. I play him. I'd much rather have Ertz in that matchup there. But if I'm paying up, but Kelsey will have his time coming soon. Greg Olson's out. Don't really want anybody else on that team. Jordan Reed's in play at 5,000 definitely. Jimmy Graham's okay. Didn't really care for what I saw though last week. I probably won't have any shares of Jimmy Graham, but he's okay. He's viable. Jack Doyle 4,000. I like that. He saw the targets. He just didn't get the touchdown. He had 10 targets, caught 7 for 60. That's good. He just didn't get in the box. Ebron caught the touchdown. Looking at Rudolph, he's in play here. Tough matchup though. Kittle, he could be viable at 3,800. Let's see the targets. He saw 9, so caught 5 for 90. Yeah, he's definitely in play. Safety blanket for Jimmy Garoppolo. Jared Cook, he's a monster. He's 6'6", and he saw 12 targets. He was definitely the safety blanket for Derek Carr. So I put that in my article when I wrote it up. I said if anybody goes off, it's going to be probably Seth Roberts or Jared Cook. Ebron caught the touchdown. How many targets did he get? He got 5 targets. He's okay. I prefer Jack Doyle. Benjamin Watson, 4 for 44, 4 targets. Don't love it, but tight ends versus Cleveland can have a good game there. Good matchup for him. Jenkins, what happened? He caught a touchdown. He got called back or something like that. Penalty call. 5 targets. He's okay. Tough matchup for him, though. Njoku, if he's fully healthy, he's on the field a lot. He saw 7 targets. He could have a big game here. Njoku's in play, 3,000. Ricky Seals-Jones, didn't really like what I saw out of that. 6 targets. He's viable. GPP flyer pick. The player way down here you want to look at, you got Antonio Gates, but I'm not playing him. He did see 3 targets. I'm not playing him, though. Look at the Cowboys. His name's Swaim. This is somebody you could look at here once I find him. And you know what? Cowboys are not on the slate. Okay, so. Nope, definitely not. My fault about that. So that's pretty much it for tight ends. As low as I'm going to go is Njoku. I prefer Njoku over Seals. You got Jesse James. And that's pretty much it. That's as low as you want to go. Favorite tight end in this price range is Jack Doyle. Jerry Cook. Those 2 will be the 2 I'm looking at. So looking at defense, my favorite team to stack, you got to love the Chargers versus Buffalo. I just hope they don't get up too much. But it's gonna be tough for them to score points, especially at home. With this defense, there's no Bosa as far as reports go. At home, Buffalo is gonna struggle. It's just gonna happen. Chargers, I see them being probably 10 to 20% owned. I think they're definitely viable. The Rams, they're definitely viable. They could be one of the best defenses. They got Sue. They got Marcus Peters now. He had a pick six, and I could see him having a big game here. Bradford is not good, and he cracks under pressure. So I like the Rams. Eagles are okay there. Don't mind the Eagles. I prefer the Rams, the Chargers. I like the Broncos. Let's see if we can find a cheap defense we can pay down. I like the Texans without Mariota. I definitely like the Texans. Gabbert can make mistakes. Looking at the Jets versus Miami, Tannehill, he could fall. He could fold up. So you could kind of look at the Jets and see what they did last week versus Detroit. In Detroit, now they're at home versus Miami. I could see them putting the pressure on Tannehill, especially if you know what plays they're calling and whatnot, like they did last week on Monday. So the Jets, the Texans in this range, those are the two teams I'm looking at. And if Roethlisberger's banged up, you could possibly, I don't want to say you could look at the Chiefs because the Chiefs defense is not that good. Bottom in the league. That's pretty much as low as I'm going to go. For defense, you can look at the Jets, the Texans, Eagles, Chargers, Rams, Broncos. Those are the 5-6 teams I'm looking at. All right. And I like the Rams, Chargers, Broncos, Eagles. It's hard to put my place on where I'm going to go. Without Mariota, I'll probably just lock in Houston. It all depends. It all depends how much money I have left too in a few of my lineup builds. Because if it comes down to $100, I'll settle with the Jets. If I got enough money for Texans, I'll take Texans. If I got enough to pay all the way up, I'll take the Rams. And that's pretty much it. That's my first look at the player pricing and just my thoughts real quick on the whole entire slate. So this is the main slate for DraftKings. This is where you can win the Millionaire Maker. And it's a $20 buy-in, 270,000 people. I cashed in this easily last week in all my lineups. I cashed all my FanDuel lineups, even though I had Chris Hogan over Sanders in a couple of them. So if you follow my videos, you should have definitely had an idea. It was a very chalky week. It was an easy week. It was one of the highest scoring weeks I've seen since I started playing DFS. So this week, this is where the men will separate from the boys. The pricing is way tougher than it was last week. It's not that difficult to build good lineups, but some will struggle. And from what I've seen on YouTube and from people sending me their lineups, like, people don't know who to play. People are all over the place, and I think there's going to be a lot of mistakes people are going to make rostering certain players, and that's where a sharp will exploit that, and that's what I look for. I look to see what everybody else is going to do, find out what the chalk's going to be, decide what's good chalk, what's bad chalk, who I'm going to play, and then try to come up with a plan, game theory, and then be different. And it's all strategy. So everyone's your competition, your opponent. You're trying to beat the field and come up with the best lineup and outscore everybody else. So you got to be strategic and kind of a mastermind to create an edge on the field from where everybody else is going to go. So good luck to everybody this week. Hit me up at DFS Wolfpack on Twitter, Instagram, and definitely check out the DFS Wolfpack website. That's dfswolfpack.com. Check out the player pool. Check out my lock plays of the week and hit me up. Join the league on Draftkings, DFS Wolfpack, link down below in the description. 1.